Right now, you are warm. You may not even notice it. Somewhere inside your home, a machine is quietly protecting you from the cold. The temperature drops. Heat turns on. You step from a heated room into a heated car, then into another heated building. The coldest part of your day may be the few seconds between them, but for most of human history, winter was not a minor inconvenience. Winter was a season designed to end you. It attacked from every direction at once. Cold drained heat from the body. Food became harder to find. Nights stretched longer. Wind entered every gap in a shelter. And beyond the firelight, predators were still moving through the dark. So how did ancient humans survive it? How did a species with no fur, no claws, no natural armor, and no built-in protection against freezing weather spread into Ice Age Europe, Northern Asia, and some of the harshest landscapes on Earth? The answer was not one invention. It was a chain of inventions, a chain built from fire, animal skins, shelters, stored food, and something even stranger: the long winter night itself. Start with the obvious enemy: cold. The human body is exceptionally good at losing heat. Our ancestors evolved in Africa, where sweating and relatively sparse body hair helped release heat during long days of movement under the sun. But a body adapted for cooling becomes vulnerable when temperatures fall, wind rises, and darkness arrives. Bare skin in a cold environment can become a serious survival problem very quickly. And yet humans did not avoid the cold forever. They moved directly into it. They entered regions where winter could last for months, and where survival required more than toughness. It required preparation. The first answer was fire. A fire gave warmth, light, cooked food, and a place for people to gather. But fire had limits. It warmed the side of the body facing the flames. Step away to hunt, collect fuel, or travel through snow, and the cold rushed back in. Fire could not travel with you. So ancient humans needed something else. They needed to carry warmth on their bodies. Animal skins were probably among the earliest solutions. A hide thrown over the shoulders could block wind and trap some heat. But a loose skin had weaknesses. It slipped. It opened at the sides. Cold air entered through every gap. In a mild climate, that might be enough. In a true winter, it might not be. The breakthrough was not simply wearing animal skin. It was shaping it. Cutting hides, piercing them, joining separate pieces, creating clothing that followed the human body closely enough to trap warm air against the skin. That is the difference between a blanket and a coat. Archaeologists cannot easily find ancient clothing because animal skin usually decays. Instead, they search for the tools that made clothing possible: hide scrapers, bone awls, and needles. Evidence suggests that early humans used animal skins for protection in colder environments long before eyed needles appeared, while fitted garments could have been made with awls and other tools. The earliest known eyed needles appear around 40,000 years ago in Siberia and later in other parts of Eurasia, making finer and more efficient sewing possible. Think about what that required. A person had to take a splinter of bone, shape it into a fine point, and make a tiny eye strong enough to carry sinew or fiber without breaking. It was not an accident. It was a precise tool created for a precise problem. Keep warm while moving. With stitched hides, fur, layered materials, and better-fitting garments, humans could carry a small pocket of warmth almost everywhere they went. Clothing did not make winter harmless. It made winter possible. But warmth around the body was only half the battle. Night was still coming, and in the ancient world, no one could assume a cave would be waiting. Caves were useful, but they were not everywhere. A dry cave in the right location was valuable, and many groups would have needed to build shelters instead. In open Ice Age landscapes with little wood, people had to use whatever the land provided. Sometimes that meant mammoth bones. At sites in Ukraine, including Mezhirish, Archaeologists have uncovered large upper Paleolithic structures made with mammoth bones. Recent research continues to examine exactly how these structures were built and used, but they reveal something remarkable. Ancient people could create substantial shelters in landscapes where timber was scarce. Imagine entering one. Mammoth bones form the structure. Hides may have covered parts of it. A fire burns nearby or inside a protected area. The wind is slowed. The ground is covered. The group is no longer exposed to the night in the same way. A shelter is not just walls. It is a machine for keeping heat where people need it. But shelter created another problem: fuel. A winter fire does not feed itself. Someone has to collect wood, brush, dung, bone, or whatever fuel is available. That means planning. It means knowing the landscape. It means gathering before the storm arrives. And it means food. Winter did not stop all hunting and gathering everywhere. Different environments offered different resources, and hunter-gatherer communities adapted in many different ways. But in seasonal landscapes, food could become harder to obtain, and stored supplies became increasingly important. Drying and smoking meat helped reduce spoilage and made food easier to carry or save for later. Archaeological and ethnographic research shows that hunter-gatherers used preservation methods, though storage alone rarely supported an entire mobile population for long unless conditions were especially favorable. This is important. Ancient winter survival was not just about finding food. It was about thinking ahead. A successful hunt in autumn could become dried meat for late winter. Animal fat could provide dense energy. Frozen conditions could sometimes help preserve food, but they also created new risks and limits. Every group had to calculate what could be carried, stored, protected, and shared. Winter turned survival into mathematics. How many mouths? How many days? How much fuel? How much food? How long until spring? And then came the fourth threat: darkness. Winter nights can feel long even now, when every home is filled with screens, lights, music, and endless distraction. But imagine a world where darkness means the end of travel, the end of most hunting, and the beginning of cold silence outside the shelter. For ancient humans, darkness could have been frightening, but it also created time. Time to repair tools, time to reshape stone blades, time to mend clothing, time to prepare hunting equipment, and perhaps most importantly, time to talk. A 2014 study of Jew/Huansi hunter-gatherers found that daytime conversations focused more heavily on practical matters, while firelit evening conversations more often involved stories, imagination, ritual, social relationships, and cultural knowledge. The study does not prove that every ancient winter night worked the same way, but it offers a powerful clue about what firelight can do for human groups. Fire did more than keep bodies warm. It created a circle. Inside that circle, elders could explain the landscape. Hunters could describe dangerous animals. Parents could teach children which plants mattered, which paths were safe, which mistakes could cost a life. Stories were not only entertainment. They could be survival information disguised as memory. A story about a dangerous river might keep someone alive. A story about an animal's behavior might improve a hunt. A story about an ancestor might keep a group connected through a long season of isolation. Winter, in that sense, may have helped build culture. Not because winter was kind, but because it forced people to depend on one another. When the cold came, no individual could solve everything alone. One person gathered fuel, one repaired clothing, one watched the children, one remembered where food had been stored, one told the story that explained what to do next, and together they became more than a collection of vulnerable bodies. They became a survival system. That is the real secret of ancient winter. Humans did not beat the cold with strength. They beat it with invention. They turned animal hides into clothing. They turned bones into shelters. They turned fire into warmth and light. They turned food into stored time. And they turned darkness into a workshop, a classroom, and a place to remember who they were. Winter shaped human history because it demanded more than endurance. It demanded imagination. So the next time you hear your heater turn on, remember what came before it. Thousands of generations watching the first frost arrive, wondering whether the shelter would hold, wondering whether the food would last, wondering whether spring would return in time. You do not survive winter the way they did. You inherit the solutions they built. Which fact surprised you the most? If you enjoy uncovering nature's hidden secrets, don't forget to subscribe.